stream for you guys. All right, we're now streaming, and I'll just leave this open, and you guys can do what you need to do.
Okay. Okay, so we've sworn in the team members. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? Okay, see nodding. Gallery members, including teacher and attorney coaches, family members, and friends, please raise your right hands. Do you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round?
Yes, we do.
And finally, scoring panelists. You lost Deneen, but oh, there she is. Please raise your right hands. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, I think with that, we are ready for the prosecution's opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, a man is dead. Mackenzie Brackman will never say hi to anyone, hug his family and friends, talk on the phone, worry about something, or enjoy life ever again. On March 6, 2020, late in the day, paramedics responded to a call from a passing motorist. This led the paramedics to a gruesome murder scene in a neighborhood. Earlier that day, a man had been murdered in his own home. Mackenzie Brackman was dead. A masked intruder with gloves on entered Brackman's house through the back door. Brackman and the intruder struggled through the house, leaving scuff marks on the ground. They went through the kitchen, leaving behind them a knocked-over dining room chair and a broken plate. Following a trail of blood droplets from the kitchen table, the struggle continued to the front door of the house, where Brackman was found dead, and a large pool of his own blood that had slowly seeped out of the ragged knife wound in his back. The last light of Brackman's eyes left him just inside his own doorstep, inches away from escape. Today you will hear from dedicated mock trial senior, Alex Cifuentes, who will detail how the defendant behaved in mock trial practice, as well as describe the series of escalating situations that resulted from the challenging relationship between Avery and Brackman. Alex will also bring to light text messages that illustrate a strained relationship between Avery and Brackman, as well as an ominous message about a plan to take things one step further from vandalizing Brackman's car to damaging his house. You will also hear from Detective Jordan Markowitz, who was the first to respond to the scene and collect evidence. She will tell you about the broken plates, the chair that was knocked over, and the state of the victim's body when she found it. Detective Markowitz will also inform you of some critical cell phone tower evidence that shows where the defendant and her best friend Taylor Perkins were located the day of Mackenzie Brackman's death. Lastly, you will hear from crime scene investigator Kyle Cusack, who has used a detailed process to go through the case. She will explain the events that happened at Brackman's house leading up to his murder. Cusack believes that the intruder had a premeditated plan to break in. Today, the defense will introduce you to the defendant in this case, Avery Becker, a skilled mock trial lawyer who had nearly perfected the ability to make things up on the fly and construct a convincing argument with little to no prep. All Becker ever had to do was smile at each judge, and they understand that she knew the case. The defense will also introduce Becker's best friend, Taylor Perkins, who would do anything for Becker and even quit the mock trial team when Becker was demoted. The defense will also heavily rely on the perspective of Blake Van Owen, who is motivated by faulty personal relationships with both Detective Markowitz and crime scene investigator Cusack. As you go through this trial, you will hear that Van Owen is a private investigator and has only ever, in his whole time as a private investigator, been hired for the role of defense witness. He is paid between $6,000 and $10,000 per case that he testifies for the defense in, and he takes on about 9 to 12 of these cases a year. Despite the defendant's constant and repetitive detrimental actions, they've never had to face the repercussions of these actions before. Brackman never pressed charges for the vandalism of his Porsche, and his best friend Taylor Perkins quit without question at the defendant's behest. But here today, ladies and gentlemen, you have the opportunity and the responsibility to finally and permanently hold Avery Becker accountable for his actions. Mackenzie Brackman was a criminal defense lawyer and the hardworking and dedicated mock trial coach at Colorado High School. Brackman's passion and care for mock trial and his students should not be allowed to be minimized by the personal opinions and feelings of others. Despite sometimes having difficult relationships with people, Mackenzie Brackman taught others the skills required to achieve their dreams and motivated others to pursue their passions. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will bring justice for a dedicated coach and attorney. The defendant, Avery Becker, is responsible for creating a world without Mackenzie Brackman, and he must be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Defense opening statement.
Rage, rivalry, revenge. Rage, rivalry, revenge. Resentment, rivalry, revenge. If the motive doesn't fit, you must acquit. If the motive doesn't fit. Missing one moot court competition versus your dad spending the rest of his life in prison are two very different motives. Blair Rollins has disappeared. Blair Rollins had the motive, the opportunity, and the assistance to commit this murder. Where is Blair Rollins? The police can't tell you. The prosecution can't tell you. No one can tell you. Well, maybe except for Alex Fuentes. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there are just way too many things that make us go, Too many things that leave us with reasonable doubt, too many inconsistencies, and too many mistakes made by the police. The police never obtained Alex Fuentes' phone. The police never obtained Avery Becker's phone. The police cannot even pinpoint with 100% accuracy the telephone towers that were used. Detective Markowitz says he's trained in cell phone technology, yet doesn't know the key basics to an iPhone. You will hear a testimony on how the legend messages could have been easily fabricated by Alex Fuentes and his buddy Blair Rollins. If two people have iPhones, the color of the messages will be blue. That wasn't the case here. No time or date stamps on the messages, no saved numbers, no fingerprints, and no witness cell phone. The police lost important forensic evidence. The police lost important photographs. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the evidence will show that there were two people there, yet the police never investigated the two different people who were there. The police never investigated Blair Rollins, who has a very clear motive. Then we have Kyle Kuzak, the crime scene investigator. Listen very carefully to his botched crime scene and mistaken analysis to what happened that day. There is no way the victim could have been stabbed the way he suggests. His theory simply makes no sense. If the victim had seen a burglar at his front door, he would have made a 911 call. There was no call. The scuff marks on the back of the door were not fresh, but old. Where the victim was stabbed was not consistent with a face-to-face fight, but with somebody getting stabbed from behind, trying to escape. The prosecution's star witness, Alex Fuentes, has motive and opportunity to commit this to frame our client. Rage and rivalry. Alex wanted to be the star of moot court and would be only if Avery remained kicked off the team. Alex was never good friends with Avery. They hardly talked. Rage and rivalry. Their phone numbers were not mutually shared nor saved. Revenge. Mr. Brackman, Alex was friends with Blair Rollins and knew about his desire to get revenge against Mr. Brackman. Revenge. Alex was there at the night before at the Fry Shack and took Avery Becker's phone. Blair Rollins and his father had shouted in open court that Mackenzie was doomed. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Who had the motive to commit this crime? A senior worried about one last moot court competition, or an angry, vengeful teen seeking revenge for his father's life sentence to prison, and a jealous, envious teen who wanted to be the star of moot court? Rage, rivalry, revenge. Avery Becker is innocent. He didn't do this crime. The prosecution needs to find Blair Robbins.
Thank you. Prosecution, you may call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to call to stand Alex Cifuentes. Alex, please state your full name.
My name is Alex Cifuentes.
Where do you go to school?
I go to school at Colorado High School.
What extracurriculars are you involved in?
I'm actually involved in the mock trial team.
And who else were members of your mock trial team?
Well, there were many, but two specifics are Taylor Perkins and Avery Becker.
And how did you get involved with the mock trial team?
Avery actually introduced me and convinced me to try out for it my freshman year.
Do you see the defendant, Avery Becker, in this courtroom?
Yes, I do. He is right over there.
Your Honor, may we please have the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant?
Yes, subject to cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Alex, who was your mock trial team's coach?
My coach was Mackenzie Brackman, and he was an amazing coach.
How dedicated were you in your role as a mock trial team member?
I was very dedicated, and I took my role extremely seriously.
What would you do to prepare for mock trial practices and tournaments?
Objection, Your Honor. I don't see how these questions of this character's mock trial experience has anything to do with this case. This isn't Avery.
So your objection is relevance?
Yes, the last couple questions have been about like her experiences with mock trial, and I don't believe that's relevant to this case right now.
And prosecution, what's your response?
Your Honor, this question is asked to show Alex's dedication to mock trial in which she knew the defendant from.
I will overrule the objection. I think these are foundational questions. But I don't know that we need to go into too much into mock trial. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be careful. Alex, I will re-ask my question. What would you do to prepare for mock trial practices and tournaments?
Well, I would always create drafts and openings right when they were assigned, and I created outlines and revised till everything was perfect.
Were there any rumors that you and Avery are rivals?
Yes, there were.
How valid are these rumors?
They were not valid at all, and I wholeheartedly disagree with them.
Was Avery timely on his arrival to mock trial practice?
No, he was constantly late.
And was Avery prepared for practices and tournaments?
No, never for either.
What was Avery's go-to tactic during practice?
He was improvised and made things up on the fly.
And what would happen when Avery showed up late and unprepared?
Well, Mr. Brackman put up with it, but you could tell that he was frustrated with Avery, and he was constantly telling him to do better.
How did Avery react to Mr. Brackman telling her this?
Well, Avery hated him because of this.
And what was your experience participating in mock trial with Avery?
Well, I didn't really appreciate how he treated our teammates or Mr. Brackman.
How did Mr. Brackman run mock trial practices?
Mr. Brackman was always trying to find ways for us to improve, and he was always telling Avery about being better and to use proper preparation and hard work.
What was Avery's reaction when Mr. Brackman told him this?
Well, Avery refused to try, and he hated Mr. Brackman for this.
What did Mr. Brackman do when Avery consistently arrived late to practice?
Well, one practice after their relationship just reached its boiling point. After he was late for I don't even know what time it was, the relationship reached their boiling point.
And what happened after that?
Mr. Brackman actually demoted Avery to the B team, and Avery somehow convinced his friend Taylor Perkins to quit the team as well.
What was the result of Taylor quitting the team?
Mr. Brackman was forced to let Avery back on the A team.
What awards did Avery win from being on the mock trial team?
He won the Best Closing Argument Award and the Best Attorney Award.
What happened to practice after Avery won those awards?
Mr. Brackman confronted him and said that even though he won the awards, Avery shouldn't confuse showmanship with good lawyering, and that good lawyers actually prepare for court and they work hard.
And what did Avery do as he was leaving that practice?
Well, when Avery was leaving that practice, he was so upset that he purposely decided to vandalize Mr. Brackman's car by writing Worst Attorney Award in permanent marker.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. I don't think the witness was there when this car was vandalized, and I don't think that there's enough firsthand knowledge to speak on this.
I'm going to sustain that objection as to personal knowledge.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll move on. What were the consequences for everyone else after Avery was off the team?
So since you can't substitute another member right before a tournament, the rest of the team would have had to forfeit.
And did Mr. Brackman ever press charges against Avery?
No, but he should have, because Avery clearly knew what he was doing.
Did Avery ever contact you in any way?
Yeah, he actually texted me.
Alex, I am handing you what has been marked as Exhibit 14. Do you recognize Exhibit 14?
Yes, I do.
What is Exhibit 14?
Exhibit 14 is the text messages between me and Avery.
Is Exhibit 14 a true and accurate representation of the text messages between Avery and you as you received it?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibit 14 into evidence.
Any objection? Is there any objection?
I really
No.
want to, but I can't think of anything.
The court will admit those objections, or I'm sorry, that document.
Thank you, Your Honor. I also move to publish Exhibit 14.
Granted.
Thank you. Alex, who is texting in the gray colored bubble?
That would be Alex.
And who's texting in the green colored bubble?
I am.
Who is the person that texts, well, if he's still upset about his car, he's going to be really upset when he sees what I do to his house?
Avery said that.
In these texts, did Avery ask you for help?
Yeah, he actually asked me that I speak to Mr. Brackman and ask him to let Avery back on the team.
What did you do after Avery texted you and asked you for help?
Well, I spoke with Mr. Brackman and I asked him to let Avery back on the team for the sake of the rest of my teammates.
What did you tell Avery after that?
I told Avery that Mr. Brackman was not going to back down and he wasn't going to be let back on the team.
And what did Avery text you back?
Well, Avery became enraged and he texted that if Brackman thinks he was upset about what happened to his car, wait until he sees what he does to his house.
What do you think Avery meant by this statement?
Well, Avery told me that he was planning on going to Mr. Brackman's house and trashing it while he was at work.
Thank you, everybody. No more questions.
Cross-examination.
All right. Mrs. Cifuentes, you were a student at CHS, correct?
Yes,
You were on the mock trial team, correct?
yes.
You were not the primary lawyer on the mock trial team, were you?
No, but I was on the team.
So Avery Becker won the Best Attorney Award at Regionals, didn't he?
Yes,
Avery was notorious for doing well even though he practiced very little, correct?
he relied on improvising, but yeah,
But unlike you practiced hard and went to practice every day, correct?
yes,
If Avery wasn't on the team, you would have been promoted to primary lawyer, correct?
not necessarily.
All right. You have told the police that you were close friends of Avery's, correct?
I mean, I knew them. We were friends.
However, your phone number and Facebook information was not saved in Avery's phone, was it?
That's not in my statement.
So your phone number wasn't saved with his, correct?
I didn't testify about this, so
All right. In fact, his information wasn't saved on your phone either, was it?
again, I don't know. This isn't in my witness statement.
All right, as you say you don't know, as he is entered with the exhibit with the text messages, it shows that you had Avery saved into your contacts. Do you know why that is?
I didn't testify about this.
Would you like to look at your affidavit here to refresh your memory?
Yes.
All right, you have a second to look at that. As you say in your affidavit and in your text messages, we would like to show an exhibit. Here is exhibit 14 and exhibit 15 here, that you had Avery's name saved into your contacts. So would you be saying that the evidence that you have showed Mr. Markowitz and that you sent to him was that you did not have him entered into your phone?
That's not in my witness statement, though.
So, okay, just to make sure that in this questioning, I have asked you if you had him stated and you were not sure so, but in the messages that you did send to Markowitz himself, he is saved in your contacts?
Yes.
All right, next question. Isn't it true that the only times you and Avery ever saw each other were in the mock trial practice and events, correct?
Yeah.
Isn't it correct that you ran into Avery and Taylor at the fry shack the night before the murder?
Yes.
Isn't it also true that he let you play a new game on his phone before he left with Taylor?
Yeah, he was kind enough to let me do that.
So it's your testimony that Avery Becker texted you the day of the murder, correct?
Yes.
That was a text to request to speak to Coach, correct?
Yes.
And that was a text to get back onto the team, correct?
Yes.
All right, to get back, you never received any text that said the coach was going to be murdered, did you?
No, but he had texted that he planned on going to his house and trashing it.
You say the texts you gave from the police were from your phone, correct?
Yes, they were.
Yeah, you never printed out the messages, did you?
No, I sent them to I sent them because I didn't have my phone that day, and they said that it was okay if I just emailed them to them.
So you never took the phone to the police, did you?
Objection.
I forgot it, but they.
Relevance.
Your Honor, we show this as relevance because as it shows that they did not take the the phone to the police, it shows it shows how with Kuzak and with Markowitz that they showed poor initiative to make sure the case went well with examining the phones correctly, which usually is in an actual court case.
And I overrule the objection. You may react.
All right, and for that, to reinstate the question, that you never did take the phone to the police, did you?
No, I forgot it that day, and they said that it would be fine if I just sent them the pictures instead.
Okay, so you don't have that phone, do you?
Nope, it was old, and I got a new one, so I don't know where it went.
All right, so the police never examined your phone at all, did they?
No, but they got the text messages.
So they're relying on these screenshot copies that you provided them, correct?
Yeah, but they were the real text messages.
Do you know Blair Rollins?
Yes.
You also knew that Mr. Brackman represented his father in criminal case, correct?
I didn't testify about that.
All right, you also knew that Roland's father got in a life sentence, didn't you?
I guess.
All right, and you were dropped from school on March 6th, weren't you?
sorry, can you say that again?
You were truant from school on March 6th, weren't you?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
The prosecution may call their next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We call Detective Jordan Markowitz to the stand. Can you please identify yourself for the record?
My name is Jordan Markowitz.
What's your occupation?
I am a homicide detective.
How long have you been a homicide detective?
I have been a homicide detective for 7 years and with the Denver Police Department for 13 years.
Can you please describe your relationship to the case Colorado versus Avery Becker?
I was the detective assigned to investigate the death of Mackenzie Brackman.
What led to you becoming involved in this investigation?
A passing motorist reported seeing a person passed out on the porch of Brackman's house. After paramedics found the victim dead, officers secured the scene and I arrived at 14:20 hours.
Thank you. I'm going to address some of your observations upon your arrival at the scene. Detective Markowitz, I'm referring you to what has been labeled as Exhibits 1, 9, and 3. Do you recognize these exhibits?
Yes.
What are these exhibits?
Exhibit 1 is a photo of Brackman's house and the victim's body as visible from the porch. You can also see the Ring doorbell. Exhibit 3 is, Exhibit 3 is a close-up photograph of the victim's back where the stab wound is visible. Is the next one Exhibit 9?
Yes, it is, Detective.
Okay, thank you. Exhibit 9 is a photograph of the dining room where you can see a broken plate on the ground.
How do you recognize these exhibits?
I know this because I was at the scene where all of these different events and photographs I witnessed, and I took some of the photos.
Detective Markowitz, are Exhibits 1, 9, and 3 true and accurate representations of the scene of the crime as it appeared on March 6, 2020?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibits 1, 9, and 3 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Those exhibits are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, I refer you to Exhibit 1. Your Honor, may we publish Exhibit 1?
Yes.
Thank you. Detective Markowitz, what can you summarize from Exhibit 1?
In Exhibit 1, you can see the Ring doorbell on the victim's house, the victim's visible body, and how the front door was left open.
Thank you. Detective Markowitz, when you entered the household, what did you observe?
I observed that the residence was in complete disarray. The kitchen had a partially open kitchen drawer with several large knives in it. In addition, there was a knife block on the counter with an open slot for a large knife that was missing.
After you made observations in the kitchen, where did you go?
I went to the dining room.
Detective Markowitz, I'm referring you to what has been previously admitted as Exhibit 9. Your Honor, may we publish Exhibit 9?
Yes.
Thank you. Detective Markowitz, what stood out about the state of the dining room?
As you can see in Exhibit 9, there was a chair knocked over and a broken plate on the ground. I also noticed this isn't visible in the photograph, but there were several drops of blood on the floor.
After discovering the victim, where did you go?
I went into the living room and then I went to observe the rest of the house.
Detective Markowitz, I'm referring you to what has been admitted as Exhibit 3. Your Honor, may we publish Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Thank you. Detective Markowitz, what did you observe upon finding the victim? Can you summarize what you see here?
Yes. Well,
Objection, Your Honor. I don't believe that this witness is an expert in this area yet. It hasn't been established, and I would very much like this witness to be established as an expert in anything crime scene before she starts talking about the dead body on my screen.
I will overrule the objection. I don't think this question calls for any expertise. It's simply what the detective observed. But if that type of issue arises, you are free to object if there's a question that calls for an expert opinion.
Thank you. Detective Markowitz, I'll just ask you one more time. What did you observe upon finding the victim? Can you summarize what you see in Exhibit 3?
All right. In Exhibit 3, you can see that the victim's shirt was blood-soaked around the upper left back and shoulder area. You can't see this in the exhibit, but there was also a large knife near the victim.
After you discovered the victim, where did you go?
I went to look throughout the rest of the home.
What did you observe upon examining the remainder of the house?
I observed that there were no other victims and expensive items like laptops and flat-screen TVs were left completely undisturbed.
How did you discover Mr. Brackman's ties to the Colorado High School mock trial team?
I downloaded the contents of Brackman's phone and found texts and emails related to mock trial. He was also wearing a shirt related to mock trial.
Who did you speak with following this breakthrough?
I contacted the students of the mock trial team and spoke with a student named Alex Cifuentes.
What information did you gain from speaking with Cifuentes?
Alex Cifuentes.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
I think the way the question was phrased doesn't call for hearsay, but if the witness plans to testify to exactly what was said, then I would sustain the objection.
Your Honor,
So-
under 1D, this is prior consistent statement. Alex Cifuentes has already testified under oath and provide the basis for this information.
I will overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, what information did you gain from speaking with Alex?
Alex informed me of a student who texted about a plan to trash Brackman's house.
Who was the other student identified by Alex?
The defendant, Avery Becker, another student on the mock trial team.
Did you speak directly with Alex Cifuentes?
Yes, Alex Cifuentes conducted a full interview. He talked about the difficult relationship between the victim
Objection,
and
Your
the
Honor,
defendant.
hearsay.
I'm going to sustain that objection.
Thank you. I'm going to move on and talk about cell phone evidence. Detective Markowitz, can you please describe what experience you have working with cell phones?
I have specialized training and experience with cell phones. I have a cell phone technology and forensic data recovery certification from the American Academy of Law Enforcement. This gives me information about types of cell phone data and records that can be obtained, how to use forensic software such as the Cellbrite system to download information from a phone, how to acquire and interpret cellular records, and how to obtain and interpret cell tower data.
I would like to ask the court to designate Detective Jordan Markowitz as an expert in cell phone evidence and call detail records pursuant to Rule 702 of the Colorado Rules of Evidence.
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation, I would like to hear, if we could, of hours or any like time spent in this field. I've heard, you know, the degrees or not degrees, certifications, but I would like to, you know, if there's he's been in court cases, she has been in court cases before, any of that kind of stuff, other than just the pure certification.
At this point, I'm going to sustain the objection. If there's further information in regard to this witness's expertise, I'll allow the prosecution to elicit that, or this officer or detective can testify to his personal knowledge and experience.
Yes, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, can you tell us a little bit about your experience working with cell phone data in the past?
Yes, as a homicide detective, I have downloaded the contents of hundreds of phones and have obtained and interpreted cell tower data in over 50 cases.
Thank you, Detective Markowitz. And one more time, how long have you been a homicide detective?
I have been a homicide detective for 7 years.
Thank you. I would like to ask the court to designate Detective Jordan Markowitz as an expert in cell phone evidence and call detail records pursuant to Rule 702 of the Colorado Rules of Evidence. Detective Markowitz has extensive knowledge through training and experience that the average person does not have.
Any objection?
I heard 7 years. I have a timeline, so I'm good.
I will designate this witness as an expert in, I believe the phrase was cell phone extraction.
Yes, Your Honor, cell phone evidence and call detail records. Thank you. Detective Markowitz, did you examine cell phone records in this case?
I did. I examined the victim's phone and pulled various records relating to the defendant's phone.
How did you get access to these records?
I obtained a warrant.
What type of records did you examine?
I got access to cell tower records from Avery's phone for March 6, 2020. I also received call detail records.
What did you learn from the call detail records?
In this case, the call detail records showed that another cell phone was sending several texts and calls to Becker's phone leading up to Brackman's death.
Detective Markowitz, I'm referring you to what has been marked as Exhibit 16. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
What is Exhibit 16?
This is a diagram that shows the route the defendant most likely drove based off of the call detail records.
How do you know this?
I know this because I was the one who put this diagram together.
Detective Markowitz, is Exhibit 16 a true and accurate representation of what the call detail records from the defendant's phone tell you about the route the defendant drove?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibit 16 into evidence.
Objection, Your Honor. Let me explain a little bit. So with these cell tower data, there's also on one of the exhibits a seeing of a 5-mile radius. I don't believe that we can be using this evidence to track their driving path if it's not precise within 5 miles. That's a big radius for cell towers.
I'm going to overrule that objection, but you can of course make those points upon cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to publish Exhibit 16.
Granted.
Thank you. Detective Markowitz, can you tell everyone a little bit about what Exhibit 16 depicts?
Yes, Exhibit 16 depicts the radius in the 3 cell phone towers that Avery Becker's phone connected with before and after the time of Mackenzie Brackman's murder. It also has the locations of Becker's house and the defendant's house, as well as an estimated route that I made using my knowledge as an expert in cell records.
Detective Markowitz, in your expert opinion, what can be concluded from the call detail records detailed in Exhibit 16?
The call detail records data indicates that the defendant, Avery Becker, was at home between 12:45 and 12:50 p.m. The defendant then drove towards Brackman's house on Rock Creek Parkway at 12:55 p.m. From 1:05 p.m. until 1:17 p.m., the defendant was around Brackman's house.
Thank you very much, Detective Markowitz. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
Detective Markowitz, you have been a detective for 7 years, correct?
Correct.
And during that time, you have investigated a few homicides.
Hundreds, yes.
Your first impression was that the murderer was a disgruntled ex-client, correct?
That was one of the first theories I considered, but I had no evidence to support that after investigating.
Okay. Detective, you never reviewed or used Mr. Rollins' threat to Mr. Brackman, Exhibit 22, as part of your investigation, did you?
I made note of the Rollins, but I did not specifically testify to them in my witness statement.
You never spoke to Blair Rollins, did you?
No, I did not.
You have no idea where Blair Rollins is?
No, but again, I don't testify to this in my witness statement, so I can't really talk about this right now.
Okay. Your first impression of the evidence was that it seemed unlikely that Mr. Brackman's mock trial activity had anything to do with his murder.
That was my initial impression until I got subsequent other evidence that came later in the timeline.
Okay. You were the investigator in charge of the scene, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It is important to secure the scene and preserve the evidence, correct?
Yes.
This is so a case can be made and rights protected.
Yes.
In this case, detective, you took photographs of blood drops, correct?
Yes.
However, you no longer have those photos.
They unfortunately became corrupted. Yes.
Yeah. At some point, you talked with an Alex Fuentes, correct?
Yes, I did.
And from that conversation, you learned that there were text messages that indicated Avery Becker may be the person of interest.
Yes, that he was planning to trash Brackman's house.
However, you did not instruct Alex Fuentes to give you the phone, did you?
He came in for a full interview, and due to stress, I assume he left the phone at home, so we unfortunately could not analyze it.
Okay. And to this day, you have never examined that phone, have you?
No.
Did you think it was odd that a teenager did not carry his phone?
Objection calls for speculation.
That question asks for his opinion, so I will overrule the objection.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
And you thought it was odd that a teenager did not carry his phone?
Yes, but I presume that he was stressed and worried. Police interviews are very nerve-wracking.
So the only evidence that you have from this discussion are some screenshots that were sent to you.
I have quite a bit of other evidence in the case, but yes.
Without the cell phone, you cannot compare the messages on the phone with screenshots, correct?
Yes.
Isn't it also correct you never asked or examined Taylor Perkins' phone?
Yes.
In fact, CDRs only record the fact of the call or the text message, but not the content, correct?
Yes.
Detective, you examined the cell phone tower's data, correct?
Yes.
Isn't it correct that their service providers don't keep all information?
No, but they do keep some information, which is what I used to construct Exhibit 16 using the call detail records.
The record also identifies the cell towers with which the cell phones were communicating with, correct?
Yes.
Sometimes the cell towers can be far away, right?
Typically, they go to the nearest one, although sometimes, depending on heavy traffic, it can happen. It's very rare, though.
On the day of the murder, you discovered that Taylor Perkins had called Becker several times, but there was no response.
Yes.
In fact, Becker never texted or called back.
Yes.
Your data show that Becker's phone pinged off cell tower 1227-3 at 12:45, correct?
Correct.
Tower 1227-3 had a range of up to 120-degree arc, correct?
Yes.
That cell tower also covers Alex Fuentes' house and the Fat Shack, correct?
I do not know if it covers Alex Cifuentes' house.
Okay. Detective, you also stated in your affidavit that you don't know if absolutely where the 1255 ping off cell tower 1191-1 was, correct?
Correct.
But you were guessing that it was somewhere off the Rock Creek Parkway.
Yes, that would be the most logical route, and with all the evidence provided in my expert opinion, I think that was the route took him.
And all the calls give an approximate location, not an exact location, correct?
No, but they are fairly accurate.
Okay. Detective, you have absolutely no evidence showing who had Becker's phone that day, correct?
Correct.
Detective, you reviewed the ring security video, correct?
Correct.
According to you, the doorbell was never rung.
Naturally, yes. The door was tried, though.
In the video, the assailant
Objection, this question lacks foundation. The ring videos have not been entered into evidence.
Oh. Okay.
I will sustain the objection.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
The prosecution may call their next witness.
Your Honor, I'd like to call crime scene investigator Kyle Kuzak to the witness stand. Ms. Kuzak, could you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Kyle Kuzak.
Where do you work?
I work at the Denver Police Department.
And what is your position at the Denver Police Department?
I am a crime scene reconstruction investigator.
And how long have you been a crime scene reconstruction investigator?
For 19 years.
And in your 19 years of experience, what kind of crime scenes have you investigated?
Home invasions, fatal accidents, burglaries, domestic violence, and homicides.
Your Honor, I would like to ask the court to designate Ms. Kuzak as an expert in crime scene reconstruction pursuant to Rule 702 of Colorado Rules of Evidence.
Any objection?
I have an objection and maybe a quick raw deer, if I may.
Yes.
So I have a question for you, Mr. Kuzma. It is your job as a crime scene reconstruction investigator to secure and collect all of the evidence, correct?
That is correct.
But the blood droplets and photos in this case have been lost under your care, isn't that correct?
That's not true. They just became corrupted after I reviewed them. I don't know if anybody else reviewed them.
I also would like to mention that I believe Kyle Kuzak is the one that is fired from the police department currently and is not working for them.
No, I
Or
was
resigned.
never fired. Sorry.
Let me get the affidavit real quick. I'm done. You may continue with the ruling.
Your Honor,
Do
I would like
you-
to respond to preserve the record.
Of course.
Your Honor, according to Rule 702 of Colorado Rules of Evidence, which is lenient standard through knowledge, through training or experience that the average person does not have, Ms. Kuzak has spent 19 years of her career reconstructing and investigating crime scenes and is qualified to testify with her knowledge and expertise to the events leading up to Mr. Brackman's death. Ms. Kuzak has investigated complex crime scenes, including home invasions, burglaries, other property crimes, homicides, domestic violence, fatal accidents, and armed robberies.
Is the defense continuing to object? Is the defense objecting to this witness being qualified as an expert?
Nope.
She will be qualified as an expert in crime scene reconstruction.
Thank you, Your Honor. When did you visit the crime scene?
I visited the crime scene after it was processed by other members of the crime lab.
What documents did you review regarding the case prior to reconstructing the crime scene?
Police documents, photographs relating to the case, and finally the ring security cameras.
What is your methodology to ensure an accurate and efficient flow of your work as a crime scene reconstruction investigator?
Well, I have 5 steps. Recognition and documentation, collection of evidence, evaluation of evidence, testing and hypothesis, and finally, reconstruction.
Ms. Kuzak, did you analyze the ring videos to help reconstruct the crime scene?
Yes, I did.
CSI
Foundation. In these, you guys are talking about the ring videos, but these are not entered.
Your Honor, I was laying the foundation to enter the exhibit. I was just asking if she did review the ring videos.
And at this point, I'll allow the question if the defense has further objection when the videos are offered. I'm happy to hear that at that point, but at this point, it's overruled.
CSI Kuzak, I'm now referring to what has been labeled as People's Exhibit 12 on page 69.
Okay.
Ms. Kuzak, what is People's Exhibit 12?
People's Exhibit 12 is a video of the intruder entering the back door of Brackman's residence.
Do you recognize People's Exhibit 12?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
As I mentioned before, in order to get all the facts of this case, I reviewed the ring security cameras.
Is People's Exhibit 12 a fair and accurate copy of the video which shows the intruder leaving Mr. Brackman's residence?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I would like to move to admit People's Exhibit 12.
Any objection?
I'm going to try, but I know I'm going to regret it. I think I'm going to object on improper expert opinion. I don't believe this expert can testify on this video, as they are certified in the crime scene investigating and not on the video.
Your Honor, if I may respond, Ms. Kuzak did use the video to help reconstruct the crime scene, and I'm simply asking this so she can explain how this helped her process to make the conclusion she did.
And how was the video obtained by this witness?
She received it through Detective Markowitz, who got it from Mr. Brackman's account, and she used it to help reconstruct her crime scene.
Then I also note objection hearsay.
I will overrule the objection and allow the admission of the video.
Your Honor, I would also like to move to publish Exhibit 12.
Granted.
Could we please play the video?
I'm sorry, you're asking the court?
Yes, I am the exhibit keeper and I am sharing the video right now. My computer is just really slow. Hannah?
Yeah.
I can't share the video. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, everybody. My technical difficulties are more than I thought they were. So sorry, everybody.
I think only hosts can share video.
Okay. So perhaps I can take judicial notice of the video for the purposes of this witness.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Kuzak, in this video, which part of the house was the intruder entering?
He was entering the back door of the residence.
Could you please describe the intruder?
The intruder in the video was wearing gloves and a mask.
What conclusions can you draw from this as a crime scene reconstruction expert?
Hello, according to the timekeeper, this time is already up for the direct.
Does the prosecution agree with the time?
The prosecution, I'm the timekeeper for the prosecution, and I do disagree with the time. I did pause it while the video was having technical difficulties being pulled up. I don't know if that made any difference.
I'll allow a little bit more time given the technical difficulties and the witness Boulder.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
What conclusions can you draw from this as a crime scene reconstruction expert?
From what?
Oh, my apologies. From the intruder wearing gloves and a mask.
Oh, that means that we could not recover any DNA evidence or fingerprints.
Did you notice any signs of struggle when you investigated the house?
Yes, I did. There was a broken plate, there was scuff marks, and there was open knife drawers.
Have you gathered enough facts and evidence to make a conclusion?
Yes, I have. Based on the evidence presented to me, I was able to conclude that this was a planned burglary gone wrong.
And what about this made it a planned burglary gone wrong?
Because at the end of the day, Mr. Brackman was killed with his own knife.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Sorry, I was muted. You guys can see me?
Yeah.
Cool. Mrs. Kuzma, as a crime scene reconstruction investigator, it is your job to secure and collect evidence. Isn't this correct?
Yes, that's correct.
This is because if a scene is corrupted in any way, or an investigator doesn't collect everything, there could be a huge problem giving an accurate report on what happened, correct?
Yep.
According to your affidavit, you follow a 5-step process when you investigate cases, correct?
That's correct.
And according to those 5 steps, 1, reconstruction and documentation, 2, collection of the evidence, 3, evaluation of the evidence, 4, hypothesis and testing, and 5, reconstruction, correct?
That's what I said. Yep.
In terms of reconstruction and documentations, your technicians collected blood splatters and took pictures of these splatters, correct?
Yeah, but that wasn't me. That was the police officers.
Yet your techs and the police, your techs that you have trained, have lost these photographs of the blood droplets and evidence, correct?
Eventually, they became corrupted.
Your Honor, I would like the witness to pull out what is, do you have your affidavit in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Can you read lines 44 through 45 for me?
Partially, the crime scene became, it is my understanding that the digital files for the photographs of the crime scene became partially corrupted, and the photographs of the blood droplets and cast off were lost at some point after my review.
So I will ask this question again. The techs that you trained lost these blood droplets, correct?
Can you repeat the question?
Yet your techs have lost the photographs of these blood droplets, correct?
They just became corrupted.
Can you read the last part of line 44 through 45?
The blood droplets and cast off were at some point lost after my review, but that does not mean that I lost them.
So what I'm hearing today is that these aren't your techs, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. I don't understand the relevance here. The photos were lost after Ms. Kuzak's review. I don't understand how the text corrupting the photos after her review have anything to do with her review of the crime scene.
Your Honor, I believe that this actually goes to character. I'm trying to prove the point that how could you have a reliable expert if this expert is having texts that are losing extremely crucial evidence? And this loss is being denied over and over again, even though I have made them state in the affidavit that these blood droplets of her texts were lost. That's all I'm trying to prove here.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I think that the connection hasn't been made in terms of her relationship with the texts and how the files were corrupted. So at this point, I'm going to sustain the objection.
To be specific, you personally never examined Alex Cifuentes, Avery Becker, or Taylor Perkins' phone, correct?
No, none of the phone stuff is in my witness statement.
So without the actual phones, you only examined the up for debate, potentially inaccurate cell phone data, correct?
I believe that you were referring to Detective Markowitz's statement, not mine, because I don't mention anything about cell phones, and she is an expert in cell phone towers.
So in terms of collecting evidence, you collected no DNA, no fingerprints, no cell phones, and no eyewitness testimony, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, but I was able to review the ring security cameras, which showed that the intruder had a similar height and build to the defendant.
Now, according to your investigation, you state that the murder weapon was a knife found at the scene, correct?
That's correct. It's a Chicago cutlery knife.
And according to you, the autopsy indicated that the victim had only been stabbed one time, correct?
Yes, in the shoulder blade.
And because of this, the only way the knife has been lodged, the way the knife has been lodged in the victim's shoulder blade. I'll move on. It looks like there's too many typos in that. You also state that the knife had nicked the lower arc of the victim's aorta after glancing off his pulmonary artery, correct?
Yes.
So according to the autopsy and your findings, the knife went in and stayed until the victim pulled it out, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. This is beyond the scope. Ms. Kuzak did not testify about the knife in her direct examination.
Sustained.
So your theory of the case was that during frontal struggle between the victim and the assailant during a, quote, bear hug, the victim was stabbed only once and then the fight stopped?
Yes.
It is also your connection that the victim must have known about the breakdown because of the ring feature, correct?
It is a possible theory.
However, according to Detective Markowitz, there are no evidence that the victim was in fact assaulted. I'm skipping that. That's too much hearsay. I didn't write these questions. But it is your theory is assuming that the victim wasn't surprised, correct?
Yeah, I can assume that.
So if the victim was surprised, the whole scenario might be a little different, correct?
Yeah, that's a possibility.
So the third prong of your evaluation falls short because there was no evaluation of the ring security feature on the phone to make sure it was working at the time of the murder, correct?
But I did review the ring security cameras though.
The fourth prong of your analysis is hypothesis and testing, correct?
Yes.
Isn't it also true that the victim, Mackenzie Brackman, was several inches taller than the defendant, Avery Becker?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Isn't it also true that the victim, Mackenzie Brackman, was several inches taller than the defendant, Avery Becker?
I think so, yeah.
Your conclusion is that this was a, quote, burglary gone wrong, correct?
Yes.
During the hypothesis and testing phase, you never took into account that this may have been an intentional murder, according to your evidence.
Well, I made a hypothesis based on the evidence given to me, and that was that it was a burglary gone wrong.
You never examined or investigated the threats his father made against Mackenzie Brackman in court, did you?
In my witness statement, there's no mention of what you are talking about right now.
You never checked Blair Rollins' height, weight, or weight, did you?
I don't know who this Blair Rollins figure is, so.
To this day, you haven't reconstructed the scene based on revenge and murder, have you?
I constructed the scene based on that was given to me.
Thank you. No further questions.
Does the prosecution rest?
Yes, the prosecution rests their case, Your Honor.
Thank you. The defense may call their first witness.
All right, Your Honor, we'd like to call Blake Van Owen to the stand. All right, please state your name for the record.
Blake Van Owen.
All right, and what is your job?
I am a professor of criminal justice, private investigator, and expert in police investigation.
What is your prior training?
I went to the Aurora Police Academy, and I also hold a master's degree in criminal justice from Ashford University.
How long have you been investigating crime scenes?
For over 5 years and over 100 cases.
Have you investigated reconstructed crime scenes?
Yes, several times.
Have you investigated cell tower analysis?
Yes, at least 100 times.
Have you been certified an expert in court before?
Yes, by several courts.
Which courts?
U.S. District Court of Colorado, Kansas and Arizona, and state courts of Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, and New Mexico.
What were you certified in?
I have been accepted by the court as an expert in crime scene reconstruction 8 times, cell tower analysis 5 times, and general police tactics 12 times.
Your Honor, we'd like that Professor Van Owen entered as an expert in crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and general police work.
Any objection?
Your Honor, I do have some objections for dear.
You go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Miss Van Owens, you were only a cop for a short period of time, correct? Sorry. Sorry, Miss Van Owens, did you hear my question? I don't think we can hear your audio.
Miss Van Owen, can you say something?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Thank
Great.
you.
Miss Van Owens, let me repeat my question. You were only a cop for a short period of time, correct?
I was a cop for a few years and then I went in to be a private investigator.
And in this very short period of time as a cop, you only worked with the Aurora Police Department?
Yes.
So the only police practices that you have firsthand knowledge of are the practices of the Aurora Police Department?
Yes.
And yet you still teach a whole course on all police practices?
I went and I got a degree in criminal justice.
You have no specific training in investigating cell phone data, correct?
I have worked on over 100 cases with cell phone.
You also have no degree, specific training, or experience in the use of force in investigations, false arrests, forensic evidence technique, cell phone tower analysis, or general police investigation tactics, right?
No, I've worked with some of those.
And Ms. Van Owens, there isn't any indication of how many times you have actually engaged in investigations like the one we are talking about today, right?
Can you restate the question?
Of course. There is no indication that you have of how many times you have actually engaged in investigations like the one we are talking about today, right?
As it's saying, as I just said, I have been accepted by the court as an expert in several cases.
Your Honor, 702 is a lenient standard, but it still requires the court to determine that a witness is actually qualified to opine on the topics they are endorsed for beyond the simple assertion that they are an expert. Ms. Van Owens is offered as an expert witness. However, she's had no official training in any of her skills listed. I object to the designation of Ms. Van Owens as an expert witness.
Your Honor, we have established prior training experience, master degree, and scholarship experience. As you see here, she has been certified in many courts before, and including the District of Colorado, Kansas, Arizona, and they've been accepted for the crime scene requisition over 8 times, cell tower analysis, internal police tactics, everything that is being included in the same case.
I will certify Ms. Van Owen as an expert as Ms. Marquez offered her.
All right, thank you. All right, next, going to my next question for you. Mrs. Van Owen, how did you become involved in this case? I was hired by the defense to evaluate police investigation, crime scene, and cell tower analysis. What did you do as part of your investigation? I reviewed all of the police reports, crime scene reconstruction, and cell tower reports. And what did you notice? Well, I noticed right away that everything seemed rushed and they had missed several things. Okay, so starting at the beginning, what did you notice? Well, to begin with, poor motive. And what about motive? They were so excited to have this senior that was missing one tournament versus someone who's going to prison for life. I could tell you it's because they were rushed. And how so? Well, Detective Markowitz was so set on Avery Becker that he never examined other people who had stronger motive, like Blair Rollins, whose father is going to life imprisonment. They didn't even investigate the threat he made in open court. And where is Blair Rollins? He's been missing since shortly after the murder, and no one knows where he is. To your knowledge, did the police ever seriously look at him as a suspect? No, they did not. Have you reviewed Exhibit 22 from the tape of the Rollins court proceeding? Yes, I have. Professor Van Allen, can you identify what Exhibit 22 is?
It is Jonathan Rowland's threat made in open court.
Did you listen to this tape?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to ask you to listen to this tape now.
I'll get you back, Brackman, if it's the last thing I do. I'll get you back, Brackman, if it's the last thing I...
Sorry, we are having technical difficulties right now. The screen will not show everything as that was. There we are. All right, Your Honor, we would like to enter Exhibit 22 into evidence.
Any objection?
I have an objection. Lack of foundation.
And Ms. Marquez, what is the foundation?
The foundation of this is a very big part in this case, and it shows as a substitute of what has been a bigger, stronger motive in this case. And I would like to call for this Rule 807.
And how does this witness know that this is what you're saying it is?
As you know, this has been entered already into one of the evidence that we already have. And as this, he has been over this in his affidavit. He has listened to this tape. This is going to ask him to this tape as well again as well, because it is part of his investigation that he has already reviewed.
And how did he obtain this tape?
He obtained this tape through it being entered as evidence throughout the case with Markowitz and Kyle Kuzak.
And how does this person know who is speaking on the tape?
Because it is the foundation, because it was a stipulated fact.
So the prosecution has stipulated to this being accurate?
This is accurate because it has already been entered. We're not using this as the offered. It's not being offered to be the truth of the matter. It's just that it was said.
Does the prosecution wish to respond?
Your Honor, I do have one more objection. I object that this is hearsay, being that the father said it outside of the courtroom.
I would like to respond with that. That is not being offered to be the truth of the matter. It's just that it was said. It's not hearsay, but a statement against interest.
I'm going to allow it. I would say generally you need a little more information about how a recording was obtained and somebody who can stipulate to its or can testify to its authenticity, but I will allow it.
Thank you, Your Honor. How did this tape impact your analysis?
It showed me that the Rowlands family had a strong motive to kill Mr. Brackman.
Did the police ever investigate them?
Not to my knowledge. Which is a shame. The killer's getting away with murder.
Now, the police have argued that the cell phone has been important in establishing motive and location. What did your investigation reveal?
Once again, I noticed mistake after mistake. First, the police never examined any of the 3 phones in this case.
And what do you mean by that?
The police never obtained or examined Alex Cifuentes' phone, the defendant's phone, or Taylor's phone.
And why is this important?
It's important because the police demands evidence. The police department's evidence is circumstantial, and without examining the original evidence, how can you accuse someone of murder?
And can phones be manipulated?
Yes, absolutely. That's why examining the phone itself was important. Just looking at a screenshot is not enough evidence.
So are you saying that screenshots can be manipulated?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, now I'll move on to the cell tower questions. What about the cell tower information?
Detective Markowitz basically took his theory that Becker had did it and tried to use the cell tower to confirm it.
All right, and what do you mean?
Detective Markowitz never took into the account that cell towers only tell us which tower the call pinged off of and not the precise location.
All right, and what does that mean?
It means that it could have been anywhere within a wide radius, which means it could have been from Alex DeFuente's house, from the Fat Shack, and even Blair Rowland's home.
All right, and what about the lost phones?
Detective Markowitz never actually investigated the fact that Avery had lost his phone prior to the day before.
All right, now moving on to security questions. What did you know about the cameras?
I noticed after watching the videos that the scene itself did not agree with the police theory. There was probably 2 intruders and not 1.
2 intruders?
Yes, if you look closely, you will notice that each assailant is wearing different shoes, and the timestamps means 2 different assailants. However, Detective Markowitz never investigated 2 people.
All right, and what about the altercation that took place in the house?
I noticed the fight couldn't have happened the way that they said it did. The evidence did not show that Brackman heard the alarm.
And what do you mean by that?
The police are basing their evidence off of the ring security being on his phone, but the phone doesn't record if he knows there's a problem.
And so what does that mean?
It means he was probably surprised, but not at the back door.
And how do we know that?
We know that based off of how he was stabbed. He was stabbed indicates he was sitting at the table when he was assaulted. The knife handle couldn't have been used. The knife couldn't have been used the way he said it did.
All right, and what about the scuff marks?
Those could have been made long prior to the assault.
All right, so what does the evidence show?
The evidence shows that the victim was most likely sitting at his table with his back to the door and then was stabbed while sitting down. And then as he got up, he knocked over the chair and broke the plate. And while he was walking towards the front door, he pulled out the knife, causing the splatter, and then died shortly after.
All right, Mrs. Blake Van Owen, may you demonstrate this for us?
Okay, how the police are saying that it happened is if he were to be face to face with the victim, but also you got to consider Mr. Brackman was considerably taller and that the intruder had gone above and had hit a back, stabbed him in the back, but that just isn't possible. So the only way that could have happened considering Mr. Brackman's height is if he was stabbed from a lower angle.
All right, and why do you believe that this was what happened?
Because there was a big size difference between the victim and the attacker. The only way the knife could have hit the victim's scapula would be if it was a much lower angle than suggested by the police.
All right, so based on your expert opinion, who committed this murder?
I believe that Blair Rowlands did the crime. I know for sure it wasn't Avery Becker.
Thank you, I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
I do have some, Cross, Your Honor. Miss Van Owens, how much money are you charging for this case?
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, objection relevance.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
You may respond.
Thank you, Your Honor. This question goes to show Van Owens' bias and motive.
Well, I think the witness has already answered, so I will overrule the objection, but please move on.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll move on. Miss Van Owens, you testified that you have a master's degree, correct?
Yes, that is true.
And what is this master's degree in?
Criminal justice.
Where did you get this degree from?
Ashford University.
And you use Ashford University's online program, correct?
That is correct.
Objection relevance.
What
May
is
I
the
explain?
relevance?
So I'm assuming what this is getting at is if it has anything to do with the online degree for some reason being invalid, I think that's just kind of irrelevant. An online degree is fine. There's no reason to mention that the degree was online or in school. That doesn't have anything to do with this case.
And I would note that Miss Van Owen has been certified as an expert. However, I will allow some ink background. So I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Van Owens, you left the Aurora Police Department after an incident during an arrest, correct?
I left because I did not agree with all of the stuff that the police do, but yes, I did leave after.
So, Ms. Van Owens, you are not actually a law enforcement officer anymore?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. Even if this isn't a law enforcement officer anymore, I believe that it is still already stipulated that this is an expert in court.
I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll move on. Throughout your witness statement, you continually contradict both CSI Kuzak and Detective Markowitz's findings concerning the case, correct?
Those relationships have nothing to do with my analysis.
At one time in your witness statement, you referred to Detective Markowitz as defective Markowitz, right?
I don't see what this has to do with the case.
But isn't it correct that you do refer to Detective Markowitz as defective Markowitz?
Yeah, I'm going to object relevance too. I agree with the witness. I don't have any idea how some inner coil between our experts have anything to do with the case of Avery Becker murdering or not.
I'm going to overrule the objection. It goes to potential bias of the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Ms. Van Owens, Detective Markowitz, who is law enforcement, came to the conclusion that Becker's phone communicated with cell towers on a route near Becker's house leading to Brackman's house, correct?
Cell tower is within a wide range, so it could be anywhere from the Fat Shack to his house.
And that's true. But Detective Markowitz, a law enforcement officer...
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll re-ask the question. That is true, Ms. Van Owens. However, Detective Markowitz, who is law enforcement, came to the conclusion that Becker's phone communicated with cell towers on a route near Becker's house leading to Brackman's house. Isn't this correct?
Again, objection, hearsay. She is not Detective Markowitz.
Overruled. She's being confronted with another expert's opinion so that she can, I believe, comment on that. So it's not offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
Thank you for explaining. I will withdraw now.
Ms. Van Owens, if you could answer the question. If you need me to restate, I will do that.
Can you please restate the question?
Of course. Detective Markowitz, who is a law enforcement officer, came to the conclusion that Becker's phone communicated with cell towers on a route near Becker's house leading to Brackman's house, correct?
It's off such a wide area. It could have been anywhere within that.
Thank you, witness. You answered my question. And the call detail records show that Avery Becker's phone did connect with a cell tower in the same area as Brackman's house.
It was also in the same area of the Fat Shack and even Blair Rowland's home.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Your Honor. No more questions.
Thank you. The defense may call their next witness.
Your Honor, I'd like to call Taylor Perkins to the stand. Okay. Can you please state your name for the record?
Taylor Perkins.
And are you a student at Colorado High School?
Yes, I used to be a student at Colorado High School. I'm a freshman now at CU Boulder.
And do you know Avery Becker?
Yes, me and Avery Becker are best friends.
Can you tell the jury where you were the day of the murder?
So, Your Honor, let me tell you, me and Avery were looking for her phone. We tried multiple things. We tried her GPS locator, we tried calling it, and we tried texting it.
And did you guys go to school that day?
No, we did not, because we were looking for her phone that day.
Did you find it?
We did not. We tried a lot, but no.
What were some of the things that you guys did to find it?
So our first option was calling it, no answer. Second option was texting it, no answer. Third option, GPS locator, no option. And our last option was going to the store where she bought it from.
What else did you do?
We also tried asking people that were at the Fry Shack that night if they have seen a phone. No response.
And did you ever go near Mr. Brackman's home?
We did not.
So Taylor, do you know Alex Fuentes?
Yeah, I know him. We didn't talk, but we had the same class together.
Who is Alex?
Alex is this kid in our mock trial class which is the only time me and him would talk, because me and him were partners because we had each other. But other than that, we were not friends.
So were you and Avery close friends with Alex?
No, we are not. We weren't and never would be close to him.
Why does Alex seem to think a bit differently?
I don't know, to be honest, but
speculation.
Sustained, if you could rephrase the question.
Okay. So you wouldn't say that you and Avery really ever talked with Alex?
That's
or
correct.
Consider yourself friends?
Correct.
Do you have anything else to add on?
No, that's all, but just one more, on the day of the murder, only me and Avery went looking for the phone because Alex is the last one who had it, and we asked him and he said he didn't have it.
Okay, do you know Blair Rollins?
Everyone knew him. Me and him weren't close, but we said it hi once in a while, but I see him roam around the hallways.
What did you know about Blair?
What I knew about him is that his father got life sentence. Mr. Brackman represented his father for court.
A life sentence?
A life sentence, yes.
Do you know where Blair is now?
No, I do not, unfortunately. I just know after the murder, that's when he disappeared, which makes me kind of suspicious that he's the one involved.
On the day of the murder between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m., where were you?
Me and Avery were out all day looking for the phone.
What was that? I couldn't hear you. I think I heard the word objection, but I'm not sure if anyone heard it.
Yeah, I objected, asked, and answered. The witnesses testified to this already.
I'm just letting her say her final answer.
I'll allow it. I'm assuming this has to do with this witness being with the accused.
Okay. And on this day, did you guys commit a murder?
No, we did not.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Perkins, you were a senior at Colorado High School last year.
Yes, I was. I'm a freshman now at CU Boulder.
You were on the mock trial team?
Yes, I was.
You were on the mock trial team with the defendant, Avery Becker, correct?
That's correct. Me and Avery did that class together for 4 years.
The defendant's your best friend, right?
Correct.
The only reason you were on the mock trial team was because the defendant was on it, right?
No, I decided to join it for my choice, not because she forced me to join it with her.
She didn't force you, but you were on the mock trial team. You probably wouldn't have done it if Avery had done it, if Avery had not joined it, correct?
No, I would have done it if she hadn't done it either. Like, everyone makes their own choices.
Ms. Perkins, you gave a statement in this case, correct?
Correct.
And in that statement on line 4, you said, and I quote, "The truth is, I would not have done mock trial if Avery had not done it." Does that sound familiar?
I might have said that, but I changed on my opinion on that.
I'll just direct you real quickly to line 4. Okay, so I'll just ask one more time. Would you have done mock trial if the defendant had not been on mock trial?
I mean, I'm just saying, I might have said that, but I changed it a long time.
Okay. It's your testimony that the defendant did not try hard enough in mock trial. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, in few days she did try, but some days she did not try.
It's your testimony that the defendant did not come prepared to mock trial practice, right?
She did come prepared, but when it was days like she would sleep in, that's the only day she would come in unprepared.
Yeah, so sometimes a defendant would be a little late, right?
Yeah.
Objection, ask or answer. Either that or I misheard.
No, that's sustained.
Just 1 month before the regional tournament, the defendant came to mock trial practice the most unprepared you'd ever seen, right?
Yes, that was the first time I've ever seen her unprepared, like not ready at all. Like knowing her.
Objection, relevance?
I'll allow it, or if you want to.
Ms. Perkins, you say that at that mock trial practice, the defendant was making things up on the fly, right?
Now, once again, objection, relevance. I don't see how Avery Becker's mock trial habits have anything to do with the murder yet.
Your Honor, this speaks to Avery Becker's character and his interactions with the other people involved in this case.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. I'll ask the question one more time, Ms. Perkins. You say the defendant was obviously making things up on the fly, right?
That I'm not sure of. That is the one thing I'm not sure of.
Okay. The defendant was getting off track, though, right?
Yes, she was getting off track a lot.
Okay. So despite these actions, arriving late, getting off track, you claim that the defendant was still A-team material, right?
I might think of it, but like she changed from time to time.
Okay. So after the practice, when the defendant was the most unprepared you'd ever seen, the defendant was demoted to the B team, correct?
No, she was demoted to the B team when she got into an argument with Mr. Brackman. The one time she became unprepared was when Mr. Brackman tried talking to her about being more respectful. That was the only time.
So after the defendant was demoted to the B team, you quit the mock trial team just 1 week before regionals so the defendant could get their spot back, right?
No.
No? You gave a statement in this case, correct?
I did, correct.
In that statement on lines 29 through 30, you say, quote, "So a week before regionals, even though I was a senior too, and it was, I decided to step down from the team in support of my friend." Does that sound familiar? On lines 29 to 30?
20 to 30?
Yeah, it's highlighted on the screen too.
Oh, okay. I might have quit, but I did not quit to support her. I quit for my own choice. But then again, I could have joined back in if I wanted to. It's not because I wanted, just because she quit.
Okay, so you quit the team, and as a result, the defendant got their spot back, right?
No, she did not.
I'm going to direct your attention down to line 33 to 34, where it says, "Once I left the team, Coach Brockman had no choice but to put Avery back on the A team." Does that sound familiar?
No, that does not, because when I quit, I did not do it so she can get back on the team. If not, I quit because of my own choice.
I'm aware of that, Ms. Perkins, but I'm simply asking you, as a result of you quitting, Avery got her spot back, right?
Like I said, no.
A-team level?
No.
Okay, so on lines 33 to 40, right here, Avery competed at the regional tournament on the A-team level, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Despite being demoted just a week before?
Before, that was before.
Okay. The defendant and Mr. Brockman didn't get along super well, right?
They did.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay. I don't believe my witness can speak on the relationships between the defendant and Mr. Brackman.
If you could rephrase the question about what this witness observed.
Yes.
Sustain.
Ms. Perkins, what did you observe about the relationship between the defendant and Mr. Brockman at mock trial practices?
So what I've observed for their relationship, their relationship, and some days they did get along, but the days that Avery did not come prepared, that's when Mr. Brackman would get frustrated because that's not the Avery that he knew.
Okay, so the defendant and Mr. Brockman, it's your testimony they were engaged in a feud, right?
I was not, Avery was.
Yeah, Avery was. They were engaged in a feud?
Yes.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Overruled. There were no statements. It was in regard to what she observed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Perkins, you found their little feud funny, right?
I mean, I did, but then again, like I was used to them seeing them fight when they were not when she was not prepared, so I just gave it up.
Okay. You ditched school with the defendant on March 6, 2020, right?
I did, but I did it because we were looking for Avery's phone that day.
It was just you and the defendant looking for the phone?
That is correct.
It's your testimony that you were looking, oh, excuse me. You later remembered that you could have just used the iCloud website to locate the cell phone, right?
I could, but...
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. I don't see how they tried to find the phone, how that's relevant. The only thing that I know is relevant is that they tried to find the phone and the phone was lost.
This is cross about what the witness did, and I'll allow it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Perkins, you later remembered that you could have just used the iCloud website to locate the cell phone. Is that correct?
I could have used it, but I wasn't 100% sure of using it. So we just decided to either calling it, messaging it, and the GPS locator.
Okay. And Ms. Perkins, you spent the entire day, not at school, but driving around town looking for a cell phone you could have found with a Google search, right? In the end?
Yeah, I could, but we didn't ditch all day. We only ditched in the mornings because that's when it's broad daylight. But we went to school in the afternoon.
The defendant had an inflated ego, right? You observed that?
I mean, I did, but like I said before, like, it doesn't really matter because I was used to her changing.
Okay. And you observed the defendant being rash, right?
A little bit.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Defense may call their next witness.
I believe that might be the star of the show, Avery Becker, if I am correct. And that is me. Give me a second to set up so I can stand. Avery, you there?
Yes, I am.
Can you turn on your... Oh, beat me to it.
Hold on.
Please state your name.
Avery Beckner.
Mr. Becker, why are you here today?
I am being wrongly accused of murder.
Did you know the victim in the case?
Yes, he was my mock trial teacher, Mr. Brackman.
Have you ever had any problems with Mr. Brackman?
Only once.
What happened?
He threw me off the mock trial team because he said I wasn't working hard enough or taking it seriously enough, so I got angry and wrote on his white Porsche, Worst Attorney Award. I thought it was an erasable marker, but it turned out it was a permanent marker.
What did Mr. Brackman do about this?
Actually, he was quite nice. He didn't call the police, he just said I couldn't return to the team.
How did this make you feel?
It made me angry and sad because I wanted to win the Best Attorney Award in the state championship.
Mad enough to kill?
Heck no, I didn't need to do any more tournaments. I was already going to college and going to compete there.
Well, there is a possibility that the prosecutors are going to use this as the way of your motive. Do you believe this?
No way. No way. Think about it. I had already received several Best Attorney awards, and that one missing a tournament wouldn't impact my college opportunities. So there wasn't a need to ruin my life with criminal charges or criminal mischief or burglary.
Did you know Alex Cifuentes?
Yes, I do.
Who is he to you?
He is a kid who I went to CHS with on the mock trial team.
Were you two considered friends?
No, not really. We were on the same team, and I had recruited him when he was a freshman, but we never hung out and really talked outside of mock trial.
Did you ever text him?
Nope, I'm not even sure I have his number.
Does it surprise you to hear that he thinks you two were close buddies?
Really? What a liar.
He says that he has text messages from you.
No way. I can prove that they didn't come from me.
Your Honor, that was hearsay.
The objection is hearsay. What is the defense response?
Give me a second. We're trying to read the question. I will rephrase the question. Avery, did you get text messages from him?
No, I did not.
Is there a way that you can prove that they didn't come from you?
No. Actually, yes, there is a way. If you analyze the photo exchanges, you will see that the phones don't know each other, and the exchanges that was made wasn't informal, but quite stiff.
What do you mean by stiff and informal?
If he was really my buddy, I wouldn't have needed to announce who I was in the text. That shows it wasn't me on the text. I don't have to say who I am to my friends.
Now, Avery, can you tell us what happened to your phone the day before the murder?
I lost it.
Do you know where?
I'm not really sure, but I think I left it at the fry shack where it was taken by Alex Cifuentes.
What were you doing during the day of the murder?
I was with my buddy Taylor Perkins all day searching for my phone.
Where did you go?
We went all over trying to find it. We retraced our steps, we went to the mall and then to the fry shack.
Were you ever near Mr. Brackman's home?
Absolutely not.
Do you know Blair Rawlings?
Yes, I do.
In your personal opinion, can you describe Blair Rawlings physically?
You know, he has the same build as me. He's probably the one in the Halloween costume, not me.
Avery, did you have anything to do with the murder of Mr. Brackman?
No, I did not.
Thank you. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good afternoon, Ms. Becker. You were a senior last year on the Colorado High School mock trial team?
Yes.
And you had been on the team for 4 years?
Yes, that's true.
And your senior year was the last chance you had to win Best Attorney in the state?
Yes.
You really wanted to win this award at the state level?
Yes, I did.
Mock trial always came naturally to
you. Can you repeat that, please?
Mock trial always came naturally to you?
Yes, it did.
And you were able to do it on the fly?
Yes.
You never worked as hard as your other team members?
Yes, that is correct.
And this allowed you to get Best Attorney Award at the regional level?
Yes.
You and Taylor Perkins were best buds?
Yes, we are.
You and Taylor joined mock trial together?
Yes, that's true.
But all you did during the meetings was text each other from across the room?
Yes, that is true.
And then Mr. Brackman would get mad at you for not paying attention during the meetings?
Yes.
You always had high quality cross-examinations and closings?
Yes.
But Mr. Brackman never gave you credit for anything you did?
Yes.
You believe Mr. Brackman hated you?
Yes, I did.
You argued with him almost every practice?
Yes.
And he always criticized your work?
Yes, he did.
He insisted that you need to have a script to have every question written out?
Yes.
And he insisted you would not deviate from this script?
Yes.
And he always got his way?
Yes, that's true.
And this is what happens when he rewrote your closing?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. This has nothing to do with the murder at hand.
Your Honor, to preserve the record, I would like to respond. I'm just simply laying the foundation for the relationship between the defendant and Mackenzie Brackman.
I'll overrule.
I'll re-ask the question, Miss Becker. Mr. Brackman always got his way,
Yes, that is true.
and this happened when he rewrote your closing,
Yes.
but you still deviated from the closing he wrote.
Yes, that is true.
This is what made you get cut to B team.
Yes.
And by being cut to B team, he also took away your closing.
Yes, that is very much true.
You did not want to be on B team.
Yes.
You felt that B team was full of, and I quote, full of losers.
No, that is not correct.
Miss Becker, did you make a witness statement in this case?
No.
You did not make a witness statement in this case?
I don't think so.
Miss Becker, I would like you to revert to lines 59 through 60 in your affidavit.
One moment, please.
It's all right. We have it on the screen right now. Could you please read the sentence beginning at the end of 59 and ending at the beginning of line 60?
I knew I could get best attorney off at the original state tournaments. I mean the plan B, the B team was full of losers.
Thank you, Miss Becker. After spending so much time on A team, at the end of your senior, you got demoted to B team.
Yes.
And this took away your last chance to get best attorney at the regional tournament.
Yes, it did.
And the state tournament.
Yes.
And then you got Best Bud Taylor to quit with the hopes of being back on the A team.
Yes.
After winning the awards at the regional competition, Mr. Brackman still did not congratulate you.
Yes, that is true.
And in front of everyone, he told them that you did not deserve this award.
Yes, but I worked very hard to get that award.
I understand. Mr. Brackman told you that the only reason the team won was because of other members.
Yes.
Which made you really angry.
Yes, but I did not kill him.
I never said you killed him. And you responded by calling him the worst coach in the state.
Objection, Your Honor, not in the form of a question.
Overruled.
I already asked the question, Ms. Becker. You responded by calling him the worst coach in the state.
Yes, that is very much true.
And after this argument, you stormed out of the building.
Yes.
And went into the parking lot where Mr. Brackman parks.
Yes.
Mr. Brackman owned a white Porsche.
Yes, that is true.
And he loved his Porsche.
Yes.
And once you went into the lot, you wrote Worst Attorney Award on the hood of his beloved Porsche.
Yes, but I thought the marker was a dry erase marker.
Yet you did this in permanent marker?
Yes.
And he was angry once he saw his car?
Yes.
He insulted you?
Yes.
And then kicked you off the team for good?
Yes, he did.
Which ended your 4-year-long mock trial career?
Yes, it did.
Which got you even more mad at Mr. Brackman?
Yes.
And you lied to your own mother about what happened?
Yes, but that's just because I thought she would get mad at me.
I understand. And then you told your mother that you would get back at Brackman if it is the last thing you do?
Yes, but I was thinking more of a prank, not murder.
Miss Becker, you answered my question already. On March 6th, the day of the murder, you were with your best bud, Taylor?
Yes, we were having a sleepover.
The friend, Taylor, who joined mock trial because of you?
Yes.
Who quit mock trial because of you?
Objection,
Yes.
Speculation. I don't believe my witness should, it doesn't have firsthand knowledge of the person in question's opinions.
Your Honor, I would like to preserve the record. Are you saying that Miss Becker does not have firsthand knowledge of her own relationship with Taylor Perkins?
I'm going to overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll go back a few questions. On March 6th, the day of the murder, you were with your best bud, Taylor?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answer. I don't see a reason to go back a few questions. At most, maybe restate the question that was objected over.
I'm going to overrule. I think that's a foundational question.
I will ask the question one more time. On March 6th, the day of the murder, you were with your best bud, Taylor?
Yes, that is true.
The friend who joined mock trial because of you?
Yes.
The friend who quit mock trial because of you?
Yes.
And the friend who ditched school because of you?
Yes.
You testified earlier that you were great at mock trial.
Yes, that is true.
According to the scores of the judges, you were still a top performer.
Yes.
All you needed to do was smile at each judge and they understood you knew the case.
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the defense have any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Does the defense rest?
Yes.
And I think we can then move to prosecution closing statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask to reserve any remaining time for my rebuttal.
Granted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mackenzie Brackman was murdered in his own home. A knife was plunged into his back, and his blood stained the hardwood floor. When officers arrived at the scene of the murder, they were greeted by blood spatter, scuff marks, a broken plate, and a chair that had been knocked over. This was a careless and brutal attack. This was a struggle. The worst part, a man's life was brutally brought to an end at the hands of a high school student who was upset about mock trial. A student who displayed a pattern of careless behavior and disregard for others. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the burden of proof is upon the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of all the elements necessary to constitute murder in the first degree and second-degree burglary of a dwelling. Today, you saw how the defendant texted about a plan to break in and vandalize the victim's home. You saw the defendant approaching the home in gloves and a mask, and you heard how the defendant left expensive items behind when he left. You also heard examples of how the defendant was rash, irresponsible, and avoided taking responsibility for her actions at all costs. You saw the route the defendant drove to the victim's home, and ladies and gentlemen, you all saw what unspeakable act the defendant committed. You all saw the dead body lying in his own blood in his own home. When the defendant discovered his mock trial coach was home, did she take responsibility for her actions? No. Instead, the defendant proceeded to violently stab the victim in the back after struggling through the house, breaking plates, knocking a chair over, getting blood spatter on the walls, leaving scuff marks on the floor, and Mr. Brackman's dead body in the entryway, all in an effort to avoid responsibility. You heard from student and mock trial member Alex Cifuentes, who, unlike the defendant Avery Becker, was dedicated and took her role in mock trial seriously. Alex didn't like how the defendant treated her mock trial peers or coach. Alex observed the defendant's clear hatred towards Mr. Brackman. Alex showed you Exhibit 14, text messages between Alex and the defendant that detail the defendant's plan to break in and vandalize Mr. Brackman's home. You also heard from Detective Markowitz, an expert in crime scene evidence and call detail records, who used her years of experience to lay out the clear evidence that shows where the defendant was on the day of the murder. She shared Exhibit 16, the call detail records, which shows the defendant at home, then driving to Mr. Brackman's house on Rock Creek Parkway, and then at Mr. Brackman's house during the time of the murder. Detective Markowitz also showed you all Exhibits 1 and 3, which show Mr. Brackman's bloody, lifeless body steps from his open front door, lying in a pool of his own blood with a visible stab wound in his back. Crime scene investigator Kyle Kuzak, an expert in crime scene reconstruction with extensive experience, showed you Exhibit 10, a video of the intruder, the defendant, approaching the front door of Mr. Brackman's home wearing a mask and gloves. The defendant had a plan. The defendant did not want to be identified, and the defendant did not want to leave any evidence behind. Ms. Kuzak explained this was a planned burglary gone wrong. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you must find Avery Becker guilty on all accounts, murder in the first degree and second degree burglary of a dwelling. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the timer advise on the amount of time remaining for rebuttal?
Yes, the prosecution has 1 minute and 54 seconds, or 44 seconds remaining.
Okay. And does the defense agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Defense closing?
Rage, rivalry, revenge. Rage, rivalry, revenge. Resentment, rivalry, revenge. If the motive doesn't fit, you must acquit. If the motive doesn't fit. Missing one moot court competition versus your dad's life imprisonment are two very different motives here. Blair Rollins has disappeared. Blair Rollins had the opportunity, the motive, the assistant to commit this crime. Where is Blair Rollins? The prosecution can't tell you. No one can tell you, not even the police, except for maybe Alex Cifuentes. Prosecution theory is all over the place and is clearly wrong. One of their key things that they have are these messages. And one of the key evidence, even Alex in his own testimony admits he didn't even have Avery in his information in his contacts. As these show, then how are we supposed to rely on these messages when not even the own defendant can rely on his own stuff, not even knowing or remembering if he was his friend or had him in his own messages? So these can't even show that he was to go to his house if they're not even reliable. Second, prosecution's theory is all over the place because when they start with the videotapes and trying to look over these, they use these as one of their key evidence to try to show that Avery was there, he committed the murder. But what they don't see is that there were two people there. The two people were there, as you notice, as an exhibit, both of the exhibits that had the videos, which is 10 and 11, show that both shoes were different. That means two people were there. But the prosecution never looked at this as a possibility. They never did anything. So if they were to say who Avery was one of them, who would be the other one? But this prosecution cannot tell you. As they say that they're pinning this on Avery, but there were two people. A second thing, and finally, they will try and tell you that he was a rash, vengeful, seeking, trying to get back at Mr. Brackman for kicking him off of the team. Avery has admitted himself, he did made a mistake and did draw on his car, but he did not realize that it was permanent and was expo. He apologized for this and even went out of his way to apologize to Mr. Brackman and even offered to pay to fix this or wash it off his car as he knew it was a mistake. Your Honor, there are too many things that leave us reason about, too many inconsistencies, too many mistakes by the police. They never obtained Alex Cifuentes' phone. They never obtained Avery Becker's phone. They can't even pinpoint with 100% accuracy the cell phone towers used. Even Markowitz has stated himself in his own testimony that it is not even likely. In his own testimony, Markowitz stated, in his own words, a cell phone might connect with the tower that is the farthest away but less busy, but most of the times it connects with the closest tower. Are we really risking a possibility for this, for putting a teen in imprisonment that is already only starting his life? As you can see here, there is no witness cell phone. The police lost important forensic evidence. They lost important photographs. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, these evidence will show that they never investigated anything more than just that. Then we have Kyle Cusack, the crime scene investigator. As you can see, as shown with Mr. Blake Van Owen, in this crime scene investigation, there was no way that his crime scene could have happened the way he suggests. There was no way that this stab could have been compared to the size difference between the two. Avery Becker was much shorter than Mr. Brackman, so there's no way this could have happened. He also didn't preserve key evidence nor examine alternate theories. They both went with one suggestive way and they only stuck with that. They didn't try and go to any way else. His theory of what happened simply makes no sense. If the victim had seen a burglary at his front door, he would have dialed 111. As stated before, there was no call. And at the scuff marks on the back of the door, they could have been old and not fresh. Where the victim was stabbed was not consistent with the face-to-face fight, but someone trying to escape from who was stabbed from behind. The prosecution's star witness, Alex Cifuentes, has motive, the opportunity to frame our client. Rage and rivalry. Alex wanted to be the star of moot court and would be if Avery was kicked off the team. Alex and Avery were never good friends. They hardly talked. Rage and rivalry. Their phone numbers were not mutually shared or saved. Revenge. Alex was friends with Blair Rollins and knew about his desire to revenge against Mr. Brackman. Revenge. Alex was at the Fry Shack the night before and took Avery's phone after he let him play a game on it. Revenge. Blair Rollins and his father had shouted in open court that Mackenzie was doomed. Ladies and gentlemen, who has the motive to commit this crime? A senior worried about one last moot court teen tournament, or an angry, vengeful teen seeking revenge for his life sentence prisoners, and a jealous student who admitted that he wanted to he wanted Avery, if he were to stay off the team, that he would have been lead lawyer. Rage, rivalry, revenge. Avery Becker's innocent. He didn't do this crime. The prosecution needs to find Blair Rollins.
Rebuttal.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, the defense continues to tell you about rage, rivalry, and revenge. They claim Alex had rage towards the defendant, Avery Becker. However, Alex liked the defendant. The students who claim Alex didn't like the defendant are some of the defendant's closest friends. Can we really trust their perspective on this relationship? The defense claims that Alex and Avery had a rivalry. But you can't have a one-sided rivalry. Just because Avery and Taylor Perkins did not get along with Alex doesn't constitute their relationship to be a rivalry. And lastly, the defense claims that Avery and Blair had motive for revenge. They showed you Exhibit 22, a sound clip of Jonathan Rollins yelling about getting back at Mr. Brackman if it's the last thing they did. But ladies and gentlemen, the defendant Avery Becker herself confirmed that when she went home after getting kicked off the mock trials team, she said almost those exact same words, that she would, quote, get back at him if it was the last thing I did. If those words point to a motive for Blair and Alex, don't they also for Avery? The defense wants you to believe their wild conspiracy theories. Don't let them convince you. The facts of this case speak for themselves. The defendant is the only person with enough evidence that points to the commitment of this crime. Look at the facts, not the unsupported theories. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm not sure what the next step is in terms of where to go in the virtual world.